I hate this thing with a passion. There we go. Okay, fucking finally. I am so glad I checked that before I started talking. Okay. God in heaven. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit disorganized. Let me move this over. If I could. OBS, fucking move. There we go. Let's see. We are on Mentis Wave, so let me change the thing. Okay, here we go. I've got this pulled up. Okay. Did my stream crash on? Okay, it did not. Anyway, so I'm just going to give my thoughts on all of this bullshit that's happened in Minnesota. Uh, so we're just going to go through effectively what is the feed. So I think Mentis probably had the most rational take on unsurprisingly at the beginning, but I do think he is demonstrably wrong on a couple of this stuff. So uh, he tweeted, "Some people request my take on the ice shooting. I honestly think that Renee just freaked out and didn't know what to do and made a stupid decision in panic. I don't think that. Well, we see her face in the later video. She was not panicked, uh, so that turned out to be incorrect. The officer who fired would have no way of knowing if she was trying to run him over, if she was trying to, or just having a woman moment. This part he's correct. Even if you can see someone's face, you can't really read their mind on that alone. So, that's true. After watching the footage a few times over, I strongly suspect she was just having a woman moment. I disagree. It didn't look like she was seriously trying to run him over, but it was reckless and spastic. I can agree with that part. I know this isn't the most interesting take, but sadly, this is likely the case. Well, that didn't turn out to be correct. But then again, like, we're not oracles. We can't know this until all the footage comes out. That's So before we go, I think it's kind of important to point out this particular thing because she just says the quiet part out loud here. Hold on.
The fact that a U.S. citizen was murdered by ICE.
The way I feel is I watched the video on multiple different angles.
That is not a feeling. How do you feel? Feel it here in your heart.
Okay. And like I was saying,
your immigrant mother.
Right.
Feel it in your heart.
I do.
Okay,
and
so don't tell me what you saw or what you watched.
If someone tried to run me over, I would have done the same thing. I would have done the same thing.
Not
That's
a feeling.
how I feel. I feel perfectly fine.
That's not a feeling.
I feel fine. We're so used to being antagonized that it's just.
So, leaving beside the racialist implication that he has to have an immigrant mother, that he can't at all be Aboriginal to the states. Notice how, again, this whole thing is about control. And let's be fair, the only reason that he's getting this kind of conversation in the first place is because of the racialized politics that the woman on the other side of this conversation actually has. And also the fact that he points out her behavior changed as soon as the camera came out. But that being said, when he was articulating how he felt, which was filtered obviously through his reason, she tells him flat out, that's not a feeling. How did you feel? So that gives you a lot of context on how exactly a lot of these people are coming about this. And I'll give a little bit of comment on it. And again, this is the cult of toxic empathy. There's a reason the Greeks gave a negative connotation to the word empatheia, but a positive connotation to the word sympatheia. And in fact, sympathy has been maliciously maligned by bad actors in favor of empathy, and empathy is a lesser good than sympathy. I'm going to be perfectly honest. If a doctor is operating on me, I don't give a shit if he has sympathy for me. I don't give a shit if he has empathy for me. I want him to have sympathy for me. I want him to fucking reach down and pull me out of this shit, whether or not he feels what I feel or not. Whether or not he could feel what I'm feeling in a moment, completely fucking irrelevant. But
it's one of those things where you don't really entertain it. I'm having a conversation with you because we've been real respectful. That's all it is.
That's how I was trying.
But every single time I see those cameras pop up, our conversation changes ever so slightly. So, our conversations, a little bit. They get a little bit more.
No, so I was upset because you were telling me what I know.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That's fair.
Yes.
That's fair. That's human.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is.
If I escalated, I apologize.
It's fine.
You guys were best friends before the camera came over here. Don't lie. I seen it.
I mean, we were having a really good conversation.
We were having a really good conversation. The camera's a little dangerous, all right?
This one has empathy. Like, look at his eyes.
I appreciate it.
I feel
Thank
like
you.
if
Like I said, I think at the end of the day, we all have different experiences as agents. I personally have arrested some pretty terrible people, and I have arrested people that are just here, and their only crime is immigration. And it is what it is.
How?
I gotta point out that, like, in this entire interaction, the person on the other end never is fully humanized in this entire conversation by her. You have to pay attention to what she says and how she says it, because the tone of the voice carries as much information as the semantic content. She says, this one has empathy. Not only does this mark him out as an exception, she still keeps that distance, not by saying he has empathy or or anything like that. There's that bridge between the person and the person they're talking to. This one, it's again still depersonalizing. But that's a stupid title right there. But anyway, yeah, this one has empathy is a fairly disturbing line in context. But this is the part I wanted to highlight. Don't think, feel. This is the most important part of that entire conversation. This is an anti-human appeal to animality. Don't use your reason as human beings, but rather allow yourself to be piloted by and possessed by passions and emotions. Your reason and abstraction is your distinctively human power. He's asking him to commit treason against himself in his very nature. And yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Again, he's a human being. He is supposed to use his reason and abstraction capacities in order to help him not just navigate the world and understand the world, but actually forge his own destiny. And he's asking him to put those things aside and let himself be ruled by fleeting temporary emotions. That is an intrinsically anti-human outlook on being, to be perfectly honest. Because it removes you from time as a reality to time as just the ever-present. Okay. So let's move on here. Yeah. So I've been seeing a lot of chaotic bullshit alongside, like, ICE. Just specifically in how stories are being misrepresented. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of the Fed. I am a fairly right-wing libertarian. And I don't like sticking up for the federal government, but I also dislike communists and Marxists and other dialecticians. To be perfectly honest, more. But this is just some advice as someone who's had to interact with police before. Don't antagonize them. That's completely unnecessary for the most part. Like, I've never had a traffic stop, for example, that went wrong, mostly because I actually know how to interact with people and de-escalate a situation. But this is just fucking absurd. This individual was hit with, you know, I think this guy was hit with paintballs, if I remember correctly. It's been a couple days and a lot has happened. Oh yeah, no, that was the image. So he wasn't even hit. But yeah, you don't reach for an officer's gun. This is just really fucking simple advice. If you don't want to die, don't reach for someone's gun. And obviously, you would say that to a person who isn't an officer. Like, if it's a guy who has a concealed or an open carry, and he just has his gun holstered, you reach for his gun, you might get shot because you're reaching for his ability to defend himself, and he doesn't know what the hell's on your mind. What the hell are you reaching for his gun for? So it's like, yeah, this is just this is the face of someone who doesn't live in the real world. Yeah. Let's see. Do I want to cover this meme? No, not that one. That one's probably in the wrong spot. Okay, yeah, this one's probably not going to be covered. Here we go.
The whiplash that the left is giving me right now, because this was not even 4 months ago. You danced on TikTok to celebrate and mock his assassination. You desecrated the memorials that were set up across the nation. You said that he deserved it, that he had it coming. You dressed up as a bloody Charlie Kirk for Halloween, and then you said with your full chest that his kids would be better off without him. And now you have moral outrage, and now violence is unacceptable. The truth is simple. Your standards are not based on violence, they are based on an ideology. If the victim is an ideological enemy, you celebrate, you mock. If the victim is ideologically aligned with you, you demand compassion and accountability. Selective morality is not morality. Principles that change based on the victim are not principles. And by the way, if you are a conservative who celebrated the fact that a leftist got shot, this message applies to you too.
Yeah, I would agree with her here, but there's one part I would disagree, and that would be that the principles that change with the victim are not principles. That's because you don't understand the principle. Quote Vosh, because sometimes being dumb actually helps expose you. Um, his principle is it's not deontological, it's not consequentialist, it's completely self-serving and narcissistic. His principle is winning. That's Hassan's principle as well. Nothing else matters other than winning to these people. Like, that's why they can celebrate when the enemy is harmed, is because, well, they don't really care about you. Their principle is what advantages them in the moment, in their particular eschatological goals. But yeah, I mean, again, just she's completely right about this. All of the celebration, and yes, it is disgusting for us on our side, the anti-communists, to celebrate the death of of a useful idiot, which is what she was. But I mean, it's not exactly unexpected. The amount of visceral disgust that that the behavior the left has elicited it's not surprising that again this would happen. Now I have a lot of issues with the right allowing the left to control the dialect or the dialectic because they're still doing that. They're still allowing the left to frame what their dialectical opposition is, which is a profoundly stupid thing to do, to be perfectly honest. But I could talk about that later. Okay, here we go. And yeah, the behavior is just escalating for a lot of this stuff. Obviously, we saw the Nick Sorter guy when he was in Minneapolis, and he was just trying to do some reporting, and then the cops wouldn't fucking go and help him, which I don't remember the court cases, but I remember there being court cases that basically settled that cops don't actually have an obligation to come rescue your ass if you're in trouble. There's been a couple cases like that. I just can't remember them off the top of my head, and those weren't the subject that I wanted to talk about at the moment. But yeah, this is another thing that popped up in my feed. Somebody is soaping up your windows so that you can't see while a violent mob blocks your car and shouts murder threats at you. You're 100% justified in executing the soaper. I totally agree with the guy. I totally agree with the guy. Like, there's nothing good that comes about from this. And you, again, can't know this guy's intentions, but it's obviously not very, it's obviously not kosher. This is obviously at least an attempt to terrify you in the car, if not more. Because again, just the deprivation of your sense of sight, which is your primary mode of determining where a threat would come from, is already bad enough. That's already psychological warfare. But, I mean, obstructing your ability to see so you can't defend yourself is also another thing that, wouldn't exactly be surprised if that's what some people started doing. So, yeah, I would definitely agree with this assessment as well. There are definitely again, optics issues with all this. Because whatever's recorded that they have on their side, they're just going to edit to make themselves look better.
I mean, slowly, but they're block. They're trying to block us in. Get out of the way.
Yeah, just you have to think about it from the perspective of the person in the car. What the hell am I being blocked in for? Right? Like, I don't know what these people's intentions are, and it only takes one nut job in an already ill-behaved crowd to potentially either escalate the crowd or do something irrevocable, like pull out a gun. So again, I totally agree with the idea that if you're being surrounded and you're not being allowed to leave, and someone is soaping up your windshield, I think Florida has the right opinion on this stuff. Because I know at least in Florida, if you're being surrounded and people are threatening you and you run them over, at least some of their police chiefs are pretty clear. They're not gonna look into prosecuting you for very good reasons. Because I do think that that's valid self-defense at that point.
Out of the way. Just go. I mean, slowly, but they're blocking us in. That's what they're doing.
You can hear that too, even in the video. You ain't going nowhere, bitch. Hold on, right there. So again, they're blocking these people in intentionally. They're restricting their ability to leave the situation, and they're not de-escalating the situation.
Out of the way. Out of the way. Out of the way. Out of the way. Out of the way.
Honestly, I think it's you got to hit a person. Yeah, honestly, I think he's totally justified in doing that right now. I don't know what the hell these people are on about, and I don't exactly feel safe around them. But that's just my opinion. Oh, they're even claiming that they're doing a citizen's arrest.
Call that one.
Again, highly aggressive, definitely false imprisonment at that point. So, but again, none of these people are going to get charged. None of them are going to get identified. So that's frustrating. Hold on. What did Savvy post? They keep the rhetoric high to keep triggering fight or flight responses in their mentally ill followers. That's true. They want their base violent and they try to keep them attacking. That's true. This won't stop. Law enforcement and right wing individuals are labeled by them horrid things to justify violence. Yeah, again, they don't call you a Nazi or a white supremacist or a white nationalist or a TERF because they think you are these things. They do it because it, in their mind, justifies violence against you. And again, they do it because if that's their dialectical opposition and you find them odious, uh, then you may be tempted to become the very thing that they say is the opposite of them, even though it's not really the opposite of them. It's just a different branch of the same tree. Let's see. This stops when we stop treating them like babies. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think she's totally right about that. But this again proves our point. Again, it's not about the principle is victory. The principle is moving their position further. And yeah, right here, Wasn't one of their own, so they feel joy. Wasn't one of their own, so they feel joy. Wasn't one of their own, so they feel joy. Was one of their own. Now it's beyond the pale. Even even though this was entirely justified. Okay. So I'm only reacting to Nate the lawyer right now because I saw that another person was reacting to Nate the lawyer, and I'm going to give it a shot. So let's see how well this goes. Hopefully, I don't get nuked. Oh shit! Maybe I should turn this on. I do have a couple things not related to Minnesota that I might comment on, but in the recording I'm going to upload on YouTube, I'll definitely put it as its own thing.
This shooting in Minnesota is crazy. If you're on the left, they're calling it straight up murder.
Brian, I've watched multiple camera angles, including a close-up, slow-motion version of that deadly shooting, and to this old prosecutor, it looked like criminal homicide, some level of homicide, whether second-degree murder or manslaughter. But
I mean, by definition, it was homicide, but not all homicide is murder or even manslaughter. Homicide literally just means the killing of a human being. But also, I don't believe this guy when he says he's seen it from multiple angles. I don't fucking believe him, to be perfectly honest.
Then you have the right-wingers who are saying this shooting was clearly justified.
She could have moved when they honked the horn. But when they asked her to move, what did she do? She literally hit one of the ICE agents and got shot. This is when play stupid games, get stupid prizes, and F around and find out if they had a baby, that's it.
So is this
I mean, yeah, I think he's right on that.
murder or is it justified? Let's break it down. All right, I'm Nate the Lawyer, and in this video, we're going to look at the Minnesota shooting, and you are going to decide if this was murder or if this was a justified shooting. We're going to look at the camera footage, we're going to look at the law, and we're going to look at the spin from both sides, and I'm just going to leave it to you to determine if this was justified or not. So first, we need to know what happened. Here is the police chief in Minnesota explaining exactly what happened at the time of the shooting.
My name is Brian O'Hara, BRIAN O''HARA. I am the Minneapolis Police Chief. The preliminary information that we have indicates that this woman was in her vehicle and was blocking the roadway on Portland Avenue, midway between 33rd Street and 34th Street in the city. At some point, a federal law enforcement officer approached her on foot, and the vehicle began to drive off. At least 2 shots were fired. The vehicle then crashed on the side of the roadway.
Okay, I'm going to rewind this just for a bit because I have seen some people comment on the sign interpreter. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I do know a little bit about sign language. I'm not an expert in sign language, but the people complaining about exaggeration, what they need to know is that facial, like the actual motion of the face, has a grammatical function in sign language. I don't know if this is overly exaggerated, but at least with the eyebrows, for example, the eyebrows actually serve to mark a interrogative particle, for example, like the ga in Japanese, where it marks a question. Again, the movement of the mouth is important in specific signs that you're making, and so the whole face is used in sign language. Now, I don't know if they're intentionally exaggerating it, but there is some degree of facial acting that is required in sign language.
Shots were fired. The vehicle then crashed on the side of the roadway.
So the next question is obviously, what was she doing and why was she blocking the street? Here's what the chief said.
So the question was, what can I share about the deceased? There is nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation or activity.
Okay, so that's entirely bullshit because we actually do know. Granted, hindsight is 2020, but we actually do know that the woman was being detained for impeding a federal operation. She was actually actively blocking the road for ICE, so against ICE. So there was a legitimate reason to stop her, and detain her.
Woman was in her car, and it appears then blocking the street because of the presence of federal law enforcement, which is obviously something that has been happening not just in Minneapolis, but around the country.
All right, so now we know why she was there, to prevent ICE from arresting people who may be here illegally. So she was preventing their law enforcement activity. She was using her car to block their path, and something horrible happened. So first, as always, we'll start with the law. So you know what you're looking for when you see the evidence. And then we'll look at the evidence, and you are going to apply the law to the evidence so you can come to your conclusion at the end. So without any further ado, here's the law. There are two cases that we have to consider: Tennessee v. Gardner from 1985 and Graham v. Connor from 1989. These two cases direct how officers are going to be judged if they use deadly physical force against a subject. So we're going to start with the case Tennessee v. Gardner. Now, in that particular case, police shot a fleeing felon in the back. They witnessed the person committing a felony, the person started running away, and they shot and killed the person. And in Tennessee, it was legal to shoot fleeing felons in the back. But the Supreme Court said, no, that's actually not constitutional. And the Supreme Court said, unless the person is a serious threat to the officer or other members in the community, then you can't just shoot them in the back or essentially commit executions on the street because the person's running away from you. And as you can see,
now, again, I think most of us are going to say that this is a reasonable, assessment to make of that particular given situation. But I think you'd be very hard pressed to find someone who's like, shoot him in the back, and that'll be justified. The whole point behind the shooting someone as law enforcement or anyone in general is usually it's to defend person or property. So if they're not a direct threat to someone at the time, not a shootable offense.
From the Justice Department's own website, it's called the fleeing felon rule. Next, we move to the case of Graham v. Connor in 1989. Now, in that case, if police are using force, that force is going to be judged by what the court says is known as the objectively reasonable standard. The objectively reasonable standard is an objective standard used to judge an officer's actions. Under this standard, a particular application of force must be judged through the perspective of a reasonable officer facing the same set of circumstances without the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, and be based upon the totality of the facts that are known to that officer at the time the force was used. Now,
obviously, the one issue I have here is I would like a clear definition for what objective means in this case. But that being said, I think this is a really good standard. Obviously, I have seen online at least a lot of people demanding perfect clarity and perfect cognition about officers and people who are defending themselves. Again, Kyle Rittenhouse is another example of people demanded perfect cognition, which they wouldn't have accepted anyway, but demonstrating very imperfect cognition while behind the keyboard. People don't realize what adrenaline action cortisol actually do to your ability to make assessments in real time. Oh shit, wrong button.
Now, under the objectively reasonable test for Graham v. Connor, the court gives us three factors that we should consider. Now, these aren't exclusive. There are many, many other factors that you can consider, but these are three the court points to in the case. One, the nature of the 911 call. Bank robbery, more likely you're going to use force versus cat stuck in a tree. Then you have whether the suspect is resisting arrest. More likely that you're going to be using force. And then last but not least, this is from Tennessee v. Gardner. Remember, if the suspect is a serious threat to other officers or members of the community, then it would be objectively reasonable to use force to stop that threat. So now you know the law, and you're going to apply the law to the facts of this particular case. So let's look at the facts.
In this footage taken by a bystander just before the shooting, we can see Good's maroon SUV partially blocking the street. Good's partner, seen here outside the car, and ICE officer Jonathan Ross are filming each other. You can see Good in the driver's seat, waving cars by while Ross begins walking around her SUV. Two more federal officers arrive in this gray truck and approach Good's vehicle while simultaneously speaking to her.
So, law enforcement officers with lights and sirens and in full uniform are ordering a motorist who's blocking traffic to get out of their vehicle.
The whole encounter, from the moment an officer told Good to get out of her car to the third shot, lasted just 7 seconds.
So now quickly, let's just break down what we just saw.
Yeah, and to be fair, again, you have to factor in the fact that, like, you don't exist outside of time. Like, we're not angels. Like, angels have the benefit of being able to process all information available to them at once because they don't exist in time. Like, there's no passage from moment A to moment B, so all of their cognition occurs as a burst of inspiration in one singular moment. Whereas human beings, we reason discursively because we live in time, and we experience sequentially. So, whatever evaluation a person has is going to be in time and limited to our biological capacities. We have a particular reaction time, and our reaction time to danger is actually faster than our reaction time to de-escalate. So it's like it takes the brain longer to recognize that something is not a threat than that something is a threat, and for obvious reasons. I mean, biologically speaking, if it was the other way around, human beings wouldn't exactly last very long.
With the video slowed down, you can see one officer grabs the door handle as Good begins backing up the car. Officer Ross can now be seen filming with his left hand at the front of the car. You can see the front.
Yeah, so, he goes into this later, but he did not put himself in front of the car. She turned into him, and it's actually shown in the video.
Front wheels spin forward, and Ross draws his gun with his right hand.
So now I want to point you to the front tire and where it's at. The officer's in front of the car, and the tire is pointing at the officer. So now, if you hit the accelerator, you're going to run right into the officer. And as you can see, the person in the car is hitting the accelerator. That's why the tires are spinning. As you can see, the officer has his gun out. The tires are still pointed directly at the officer, and the car is moving forward. Now, at the last second, the tires turn away from the officer, but the officer is struck by the vehicle, which you cannot see from this angle. Now, here's a second.
Yeah. I will also point out that all of this conversation about where the tire is pointed is completely fucking superfluous, because again, what matters is what the officer who actually commits the shooting knows at the moment of the event. And from his position, he cannot see the orientation of the tires. So as far as he could possibly know, she could be going right for him. He can't know that because he literally can't see the tires. Shout out to Crowder, who actually showed that by getting in front of one of the cars and actually showing the perspective like that would actually be available in that particular moment.
From the front of the vehicle, so you can clearly see the officer is actually hit by the car.
Well, the slowdown version is showing me that when the SUV pulls forward, they make contact with the agent in the street, and then immediately following that contact, you hear 3 gunshots follow.
So as CNN's expert has shown us, the officer was being struck by the vehicle and returned fire while the vehicle was literally hitting him. Here it is in real time. So next, the officer was recording this incident on a cell phone. So now let's look at the incident from the officer's perspective.
Yeah, well, here we go. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm going to pause this because I don't remember if this is actually in the video. But when I saw the original version of this video, like the full version, I didn't notice the dinosaur in the background. And someone pointed out, why is there a dinosaur in the background? And I was like, wait, is this AI? Did I get duped? I mean, fucking impressive if it is an AI, because there wasn't exactly a lot to go on for that other than the dinosaur. And then like the next fucking day, picture of the dinosaur from a different angle. And I was like, I knew it. I knew it in my bones that it was real. I had an Agent Mulder experience. Damn it, Scully. I just want to believe. I want to believe that there's a dinosaur statue crushing a car in Minnesota. Sorry, I had to geek out about that because like I popped off when I found out that statue was real. That shit is fucking cool.
your plates every morning, just so you know? It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Again, if we go back,
Out of the car.
look at how this goes. He did not put himself in front of the car. She literally repositioned the car, and now he's in front of the car because of her decision. So, all the people talking about how this is a policy violation for him to put himself in front of the car, he didn't put himself in front of the car.
Out of the car.
And yeah, you could hear him hit
So
the
now
vehicle.
here, the wife is antagonizing the officer, asking him essentially, what are you going to do?
I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car.
So now they realize that ICE is about to arrest them for interfering in federal law enforcement activities, and the
Which they should. They should be able to arrest you for doing that.
wife, who's standing outside filming, tries to jump back in the car.
Get out of the car.
So now what you're going to hear a lot in the media is that the officer placed himself in front of the car. But as you can see, that's not accurate because while the officer was standing still, the car actually repositioned itself and pointed the front of the car directly at the officer. Now, as the officer was trying to move toward the driver's side of the vehicle to get from in front of the car,
And to be fair, I think that this is the correct thing to do because it would take more time for him to turn back and go the other way. And again, he doesn't know what direction she's going. So if she's just trying to get away, going back the direction he just came from would keep him in the sight of the vehicle.
the person hits the gas, striking the officer.
I mean, I think that counts I think that qualifies as the use of a deadly weapon. A car will kill you. Cars are very lethal weapons when you turn them into weapons.
Now, simultaneously, while being struck by the car, the officer lets off 3 successive shots. So now that you know the facts, now that you know the law, let's bring everything together so you can decide if this officer is justified or not. If we apply the Graham standards to the case at hand, was it our one call? Blocking traffic. Pretty light, right? Was the person resisting arrest? Yeah, the officers were trying to open up the car door to arrest her or detain her, and she resisted. She didn't stop the car and get out and talk to the officers. She was actively resisting. And then last, was she a serious threat to the officers or other members of the community? Well, to the officer standing in front of the car, the government's saying she was a serious threat. She hit the officer with the car. Where if you're on the other side of it, you're saying she wasn't a serious threat because she was trying to run away. The argument here,
I mean, again, it could be that she's trying to run away and she's going to hit you with a car at the same time. Like, and it doesn't really matter if she tried to hit you with the car. It's like, I didn't try to shoot you. Well, if you shot me, I don't really care if you tried to shoot me or not. You still shot me.
is that this woman's case is more like Tennessee v. Gardner. The police essentially shot a fleeing felon. And the government is saying, no, she was a serious threat to that officer, and he responded with deadly physical force.
And in all fairness, remember the standards set earlier, which I don't think they're going to need to talk about this, to be perfectly honest. But the standard they set earlier is that the person is a danger to the officer or the public. I don't imagine it would be that hard to set up a case that someone is a danger to the public if they're going to run over a police officer.
Now, if you're on a jury, you're going to have to ask yourself, was that officer standing in front of the vehicle, was that a serious threat to that officer? When she hit the gas, car's going forward, and the officer's hit by the vehicle. And remember, the officer's shooting as the car is hitting him, so it's happening all at the same time. Split second. Now, this is where the media spin comes in, because on the left side of the political aisle, they're only showing you one video, this one.
Yeah, because that's the video where it's the most ambiguous.
Now, Glenn, that's one angle. There are obviously other angles that are floating around the internet right now, but I think all of them generally show roughly the same thing, which is that there is an ICE agent right at the corner of the vehicle, that the person in the vehicle was attempting to turn the wheel so that they could flee the scene, and of course the ICE agent used that as the opportunity to shoot and ultimately kill the person who was in the vehicle.
Now, just to show you how deceptive that was, he knows there are other angles. He knows there are other videos.
Yeah, he literally said he knows that there's other angles.
And he says that none of them are going to make a difference. But obviously, he's totally lying, because I think this video...
I think that adds a lot of context. You can even see him bounce off the vehicle. Now, granted, I have been told by some people that it looks like he jumped back. I don't know. It sounded like he hit the car in the other video. But it just goes to show you how much the human brain can be primed if you give them information beforehand about something, how the brain can be primed to interpret the visual and auditory stimuli one way or another. Because, again, that backwards jump, if he did jump backwards, that would have been a pretty fucking impressive jump.
Makes a big difference in the way you analyze what happened. So now, you know the law, you know the facts, and it's going to be up to people like you to determine if this officer is going to go to jail for murder or some type of homicide charge, or if this was a justified shooting because his life was in danger. Was he being reasonable, or was this criminal? I'll see you in the comments.
I think, honestly, personally, he's going to get to his own opinion in a moment. I think a civilian... If a civilian did that, I think they would be justified, to be perfectly honest. Maybe not legally, but morally speaking, the defense of your own life is something you don't need permission for. I mean, the state may not look kindly upon it, because the state is often immoral, but I don't really think that... I don't really think... I don't really think it's wrong to defend your life even up to lethal force. Against anyone. It doesn't really matter if they're a woman.
Section. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace. Okay, so now the screen has gone black, and for those of you who have watched to this point, I want to now give you my opinion, because I wanted the video to end, and now you to hear exactly what I think. Now, for those of you who don't know, I got 10 years of law enforcement experience. I also was an assistant district attorney, and, you know, I've been a defense attorney for a long time. This is just my evaluation of the facts as they are.
I will say, I didn't know Nate the Lawyer before this video was formerly a police officer. That actually came to a complete surprise to me. But it also made sense of why his assessments are often more grounded than some of the other people on YouTube.
I think the officer has a good defense, and I think a conviction here is probably going to be very, very, very unlikely, even without the political nonsense. The reason why I think is because when the vehicle goes forward and the officer has the gun pointed at the vehicle and he's actually hit with the vehicle, if that happens, then I don't think there's really going to be any court that's going to say that that's not a serious threat. And for those facts to manifest themselves, it's going to probably lead to this officer not being charged with anything. They may say this is a good shoot. And in this case, I can see both sides where you could say this may not be as clean a shoot as you want, but
I think it's not as clean of a shoot I've heard from some people is right here. So there's the first shot, obviously, and then peers off second, third, but again, you have to remember that he's processing information in time, and that his brain, any human brain, has a particular speed at which it can process information. So there is a theoretical limit to this stuff. And the brain will ramp up the perception of danger faster than it will ramp down the sense of danger for a good biological reason. So I've heard some people say that, like, when you're on adrenaline, it's like a spider sense and everything slows down. Yeah, that may be true. Your perception may speed up a little bit, but it's not by all that much. It feels like it's more than it really is. So all of this is just one moment, to be perfectly honest, from any reasonable analysis. Is just a
as you want, but I don't think this officer will go to jail. I don't think there's going to be any charges brought. And if there are charges brought, they're going to be brought in vain, because soon as you put an officer in front of a vehicle and the vehicle goes forward and the person's pressing the gas, it's honestly going to be almost impossible to convict that officer. It just is. It's standing in front of a vehicle that's coming at you is a serious threat. And a serious threat doesn't mean it has to kill you. It just has to seriously injure you. It can break your leg, for instance. That's a serious threat. Also, there's a lot of hindsight going on with the political commentary. Like, oh, you see, the officer could have moved out of the way, could have done something else. And
again, it's the thing I was talking about earlier. People are expecting perfect cognition in real time in a high stress situation, but they themselves don't demonstrate perfect cognition behind a keyboard.
And the law doesn't work that way. It's not about what could have been done. It's what happened. You're supposed to avoid looking back and saying he should have done this. What happened at the time, and was he being objectively reasonable with the threat that had confronted him? Now, some people are saying it's the officer's fault because the officer is standing in front of the car and the officer placed himself in danger. Well, I'll say this. Two things. Number one, if there's a bank robbery, for instance, officers run into the bank and try to stop the bank robbers by shooting them. The bank robbers are killed. Do you think the bank robbers' argument is going to be the officers intentionally placed themselves in harm? No, because a crime was being committed and they were going to stop that crime. The second response to that question is that the officer being in front of the car doesn't give the person sitting in the car license to hit the gas and run down the officer. And
yeah, that's a much better point, to be perfectly honest.
then if the officer responds with deadly physical force, the person say, well, the officer was standing in front of my car so I can kill them. That is not the way it's done here in America. Now, some people may say that it wasn't proportional. He overacted by shooting at the car who was turning away from him. But at the point in which he's hit by the car, he's in front of the car enough to make contact with the car. And I think that is going to be the determinative factor in this case. Now,
yeah, Twitter has been bringing up that another officer, a female officer, died because she was too slow on the draw when someone pulled a stunt like this. So again, it's just the facts around the situation definitely seem to indicate more towards the officer's favor.
if you disagree with me, I'll see you in the comment section.
And also, they didn't mention it in this video, but this officer himself was apparently dragged in a vehicular incident like 6 months prior. So, yeah, that kind of experience does inform how you react to things as well. You react faster to that thing. It's like, oh shit, this has happened before. You may not consciously think that, but your body definitely remembers that.
But I wanted to at least give you my opinion to show you that this case I'm struggling with, but tie generally goes to the runner. And in close cases like this, they're going to side with the officer. That's generally our system. But again, I'm not 100% positive that that's how it's going to happen or go down, but we'll see. Don't forget, like,
I mean, I think that's a completely fair and reasonable analysis. I'm actually kind of disappointed that I didn't have as much to say in this video as I have some of the other videos. I do have a couple things I will say though. Hold on, if I could find it. It's not in the video per se, but you can hear in another video where if I can, what the fuck am I doing? I can just use this. You could hear in another video, where the alleged wife, as much as like a civil union can be a genuine marriage, I guess. If I can get this damn thing to get to the right spot. Anyway, so since I can't seem to find that particular scene, the wife of the victim, or the perpetrator victim, however you want to phrase it, shouted after the event that why did you use real bullets? And that alone, that's very telling. I don't know if I have that up. Let me check. No, that was someone lying about it. That is the Khomeini thing. That is a different one, which I was going to laugh at. Do I have a source for the officer being dragged? Not on me at the moment. Hold on, let me see if I can find that. Okay, let's see if this pulls anything up. It should. Aha. So I think we could use this for... This actually works because the principle of embarrassment. People don't report... So when people like make false reports or they lie, here's a little way to evaluate history. When they lie, they usually try to make themselves look better. So when someone admits something that's embarrassing to their case, that's usually genuine. So I did find one from a source that would be incentivized to not bring it up. ICE officer who shot woman in Minneapolis was dragged and injured in traffic stop last year. So, yeah, last summer, an immigration's custom enforcement agent found himself in a perilous situation. So yeah, this officer was involved. I don't want to read this all the way through because I don't know how CNN does with copyright claims, and I really don't want to fuck with copyright for obvious reasons. But yes, I'll put that in the chat. So she was apparently dragged in a separate incident. Oh, he was dragged in a separate incident, and again, that'll make you much twitchier in a given situation if your body remembers that something really bad happened to it beforehand. Let me see if I can find the other incident that I was looking up. Because I thought I had this bookmarked, but apparently I did not. Okay. I don't know why I decided to use that search engine. That was probably on me. Aha, found it. Of course it was. Of course. Oh, sorry. Apparently it was Officer Tatum who uploaded this. I just did not remember that off the top of my head. Let's open this and if this will load. Okay. After Renee Wood's it should be good. After Renee Good's death, someone, apparently her partner Becca, screamed, "Why did you have real bullets?" So that's the part I want to get to.
Why did you have real bullets? She was yelling!
So I will stop. I will comment. Yes, it is partly your fault. You should not have egged a friend of yours to do what she did because it ended up putting her in the driver's seat of a 1-ton missile. But that being said, the part that really caught my attention when I heard is, why did you have real bullets? Now, there's a couple things that could be drawn from this. So I've heard a number of people say ICE aren't real police, which is stupid because ICE are literally a law enforcement agency. They're for the enforcement of immigration and customs. It's literally immigration and customs enforcement. So yes, they are real police. They do have arrest and detention powers. But also, there's this sense that I keep telling people that these leftist groups, they come from a tradition of speculative metaphysics, where the ideal of what they're fighting for is more real than the world of their sense perception. And I've talked about it beforehand, mostly in the Charlie Kirk video, where I was analyzing why people were being ghoulish in my Charlie Kirk shoe on head reaction video, that these people think that the world around them is a carceral construct, that it is ultimately false, what you would call a hyper reality, literally outside of reality. And so the idea that they have in their head is more true to them. I'm going to use true because real refers to being, while truth refers to information corresponding to the real. So reality precedes truth, not the other way around. But so yeah, these people had a fundamentally false view of the world that they were in and the situation that they put themselves in because they put themselves at the center of a hero narrative. Again, this is why they call you bad things, is because they want you to be a monster so that they can be a hero in so you can be a dragon in the story for them to vanquish. Also, why they're so vindictive against you. They don't want you to be a person. They want you to be a dragon to be slain. None of this is all that complicated. And this is just the moment where the real no longer deigns to be negated and it busts through that narrative spell. And it's a tragic way to do this, but yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. The spell is momentarily broken in that it turns out there were real consequences. These people were probably also told that not only is ICE not a real police agency, or like they're not really police, but that there are no consequences. Like they can't do anything to you. Remember in the previous video we were just watching, it's like talking about them, or she mentions that they're American citizens and how flippant she's talking to them. You don't say that to someone you think might actually enact force on you. If it's a respectable amount of force. So again, this was a result of a complete disconnection with reality, largely brought upon by, to be perfectly honest, ideology. So it's not exactly a hot take, but this is the part again. Why did you have real bullets? Interesting line. So, but the ICE thing isn't just this. I'm gonna have to say though, just with this one event, everyone stopped talking about the Minnesota fraud scandals. What happened to all the Somali fraud incidents? None of us, for the most part, are talking about this shit anymore because this is the thing that piqued everyone's interest. So it was quite useful, I guess, for the people who want to cover for fraud. So moving away from that, or not moving away from that. Hold on, let me reorganize this. Okay, that's a different event. So this was particularly ghoulish.
I remember when Charlie Kirk got killed. Do you? Do you remember what our response was? Our response wasn't to sit there and pretend like it was okay. Is it okay because you have a badge? Because the last time I checked, allegedly no one is above the law. Can y'all not just have a little bit of courage and humanity? A child.
Well, I mean, the crocodile tears just pissed me off, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, they're seriously trying to gaslight everyone that, oh yeah, all that shit that happened with Charlie Kirk didn't actually happen. Sadly, for them at least, we actually have the receipts that all of that shit did happen. And if you want a more detailed breakdown of all of that stuff, my reaction to, again, Chew on Heads, these people are sick, is a recommended watch, to be perfectly honest, because I go over a mountain of information in that particular video that I don't want to rehash over and over again. But yeah, again, these people will lie to your face, and they will uh, piss in a jar and tell you it's Granny sweet peach tea. They don't care. They're not truthful people. They don't care that what it does to them as a person. They just want to win. They want what they want, and they don't care what it takes to get it. That's why they do this. So they will try to rewrite history and gaslight you, and guarantee you anything that the left writes later about Charlie Kirk because again, they already defamed him. They already slandered him. They already defaced his his memorials. And then they say they never did it. Like textbook Darvo gaslighting. So, though I am a little bit hopeful that some of consequence might actually occur, because we are seeing that people are getting a little fed up with the antics, and some of it is entirely justified, to be perfectly honest. Again, I'm a fairly libertarian person, but I see nothing wrong with this particular video, for example. So, this was from Braxton McCoy, and I find great humor in this particular sequence. I think you should actually be able to knock someone's teeth out for putting a bullhorn next to your ear, for the same reason that you should be able to knock someone's teeth out for putting a shard of glass next to your eye. To be perfect, for trying to put a shard of glass in your eye. This person is trying to impair someone's physiological capabilities, his sense of hearing. You put a bullhorn in someone's ear, that can cause permanent damage. And I'm totally sorry though, but our ability to hear our wife or our daughter or our best friend's voice is much more important to us and valuable to us than your front teeth. So I do think that this is actually straight up you are causing damage to me and my body, to my body. I have every right to defend myself with savage force. And this man is showing a remarkable amount of patience because he's just trying to get away. And again, it's the whole, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not doing any of this stuff. It doesn't fucking matter. You're still trying to cause me physical harm by damaging my hearing. Also, he did press the bullhorn to the back of the guy's head. I think that was totally justified. One. Oh, there's another one. These hands are rated E for everyone, it seems. And then this idiot, who already got knocked out a moment ago, apparently the concussion impaired his ability to think because he gets up. That fucking punch was telegraphed for like 3 fucking days in advance. And he just goes down. You know what? Hold on. Print screen. Where's my print screen? I'm going to just crop this part and use it as a reaction video because absolutely funny.
Hey, guys.
And you can see this guy immediately regretted his decision. Hold on. That guy right there, after he saw that, all that confidence just went the fuck away.
Hey, guys.
And that's the thing I want to bring to the point, is that, look, obviously conservatives and libertarians don't want to engage in violence because we actually understand the cost of violence. We understand how bad violence actually is. The problem is that these idiots, it's not that they don't understand it, they don't care. Libertarians and conservatives do care about what the cost of violence is. But this guy over here, he doesn't care if you lose your hearing and you can no longer hear your child's voice or your spouse's voice. It doesn't matter to him. It's funny. It's funny to him. He won't feel bad if you're deafened. He won't feel bad if, for example, something happens to you. So he'll just keep doing it until it's not possible to do anything else other than physically defend yourself. To be fair, I just want to see this guy get punched in the face again. Again, he just keeps going. Just the sheer number of people he completely fucking mogged despite being outnumbered is just completely laudable, in my opinion. Like, genuine hero, not gonna lie. Again, what the fuck are these people thinking about? This guy has already been staggered. Okay, he actually wasn't staggered. He might not have even made contact here. Okay, yeah, he might have straight up actually missed and then tripped. Okay, that was me, actually. Then he goes down. He realizes that was a mistake, but it's too late to fix it. Yeah, sorry. I wanted to see them get punched in the face again, because fuck it, hell, mate. That was a fun watch. But apparently someone chimed in. 5th degree assault, Minnesota State, section 609 224. It is a misdemeanor when someone commits an act with intent to cause fear in another of immediate bodily harm or death, or intentionally inflicts or attempts to inflict bodily harm on another. Let's see. As physical pain or injury, illness, or any impairment of physical condition. Again, impairment of physical condition. I mean, in EMT stuff, when I was trained to be an EMT, back in the army, like the loss of sight was treated as almost on par with loss of life in terms of like medical emergencies. So it's like, yeah, no, this is a serious thing, and they know that they can play with optics because they don't have any problem with lying. So, but yes, I do think that if someone is putting a bullhorn in your ear and they're yelling at you through it, I think that it is entirely okay to make them see stars. Let's see, and oh yeah, here's another example of people being fucking stupid. And yes, this guy is actually correct when you watch the video. This is an attempt at a shin break. If you watch the video, right here, that right there is an attack on the officer's shin. And yes, the intent here is to break it. It does look like he may have missed, or at least just grazed it. And yeah, I think that is, again, an attempted assault on an officer, an attempt to grievous bodily harm. So I don't think that was excessive at all, to be perfectly honest. I think if it was a regular person, they would be justified in doing that. The fucking Batman. At least his face softened his blow to his body. I mean, considering what the other woman said, don't think, feel, I don't imagine he was using his head all that much. Okay. Oh yeah, and for again the class conflict thing, the racial class conflict thing popped up again. Uh, this guy's completely right about this. You can literally die in service of the eternal progressive omnicause, and omnicause is fucking funny. And leftists will still repudiate you because you're white. It's just that it's just like the soldier who set himself on fire for Gaza, and then leftists began tweeting about how their own followers better not celebrate a white man who wore a uniform. Never before has an ideology demanded total obedience and sacrifice to the point of offering up your own life, while simultaneously treating its own adherents as subhuman. We are dealing with a level of psychological derangement that will bewilder future generations for as long as records of this era exist. This is the part I disagree with him with. I don't think this will bewilder future eras if they actually pay attention, because none of this is all that particular hard to understand. I've explained this before. This is largely the result of the secularization of Gnostic philosophy. They don't see you in the oppressor class as a fellow human being. They don't think that you think that it's possible for you to understand how the oppressed think. They are polylogists. They think that the oppressor and the oppressed literally cannot understand each other. That's why they don't talk to each other. That's why they suggest violence. is because without that ability to dialogue, that ability to meet each other and understand each other, you can't talk, you can't negotiate. And all of these systems, all of these all of these systems that they complain about and these ideologies, this is basically just Gnosticism. Like when you're talking about like oppressive systems, for example, capitalism. Again, got to bring back Karl Marx. He's the one who wrote On the Jewish Question, and he equates the God of the Jews as money, and that money is the thing that creates capitalism, which is the thing that estranges man from himself. That's literally the Gnostic myth, just told in an economic form. And all of them have this idea of some kind of self-replicating asset that causes this system of oppression of some variety, and which is justified by a justifying ideology. And this is an interlocking system with many different intersections, which is why they call it intersectionality. In feminism, it happens to be that patriarchy is the system, not capitalism, but they're functionally the same. All you have to do to recreate any of these ideas is you just take the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and you switch out the terms. For example, you want to make feminism, make men the bourgeoisie and make women the proletariat, and boom, you have radical feminism. If you want to do critical race theory, put white as the bourgeoisie and then put BIPOC or people of color. They flip flop on the words. And boom, you have American race Marxism right there. You wanted the German race Marxism, all you got to do is switch out bourgeoisie with Aryan and then proletariat with Jew. It's just saying. It is the same basic logic. It's just applied to a different domain. And again, they don't really see the people who benefit from this stuff as being the same kind of person. Just like the Gnostic didn't see the psychic, I mean, not the psychic, didn't see the hylic or the materialist and the pneumatic, the spiritual, as the same species. They don't really see you as the same species either. Like, that's what, again, you operate under a fundamentally different logic. You have a different end goal. That's why they treat you as if you're subhuman. Because deep down, they genuinely think that you are. And if you support if you support the alleged system of oppressions, for example, you support fatherhood, which is a patriarchal norm, or you support, for example, good business practices, capitalism. You support, for example, politeness, which CRT would call a form of whiteness. Then you're effectively a demon worshiper. You worship the thing that estranges man from himself and makes his life on earth as a carceral false existence. So, but yeah, that's why they think it feels wrong, because they don't really see you as a fellow human being.
Kind of just dazed because I was like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. It feels kind of wrong being here in some way. I don't know why.
And why do you think? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Like where that stems from. Like I mean, part of it is being like a white woman that I'm privileged and I have a lot of privilege. So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary when black and brown people have been experiencing this for a long time. This isn't new for them, and so I don't know if that makes any sense in that way.
How did you decide that you should be here? Or are you still figuring that out?
Well, I work like 2 miles from here, so driving by, I don't, it was like I'm here. I'm 2 miles. I can stop. So I mean, I'm just.
So yeah, there's that. So again, as I keep telling people, you gotta treat this as what it is, a Gnostic crypto religion, because that's exactly what it is. They pretend like it's not, but structurally speaking, that's exactly what it is. Let's see, hold on. Let me check to see something, because I might actually be able to find. Hold on, I gotta go to my history. Oh shit, Kirsha released a video. I'm gonna have to check that out. Cecilia cracking her neck. Here we go. I guess I could do one more React video in this. This did take longer than I expected.
The human brain is a wonderful thing.
Yes, this is one of the guys I wanted to talk about because I made this point before he made this video, but he did it much better than I did, to be perfectly honest. So here we go.
It allows us to perceive the world that we all live in, but it can only process information so fast. Half a second is roughly the time it takes for the human brain to realize that a threat that once existed is over. But it only takes about 0.2 of a second for a finger to pull the trigger of a gun again. In that gap.
Again, that people don't consider, again, that the ramp up and the ramp down speed are actually like within a particular window and that they are on different timings. This is important to understand. Again, this is part of why violence is something you don't want to go to as your first option, because again, you exist in time and there are consequences to potentially misreading a situation. So you always want to be, I mean, with exception, obviously, there are times where it's better to just obviously be first instead of be dead. But there's a reason, again, why good people are reluctant to use violence, but they're still willing to use violence. There's nothing good about a man who's impotent. Oh shit, wrong button.
That tiny biological slice of time, a federal agent can legally act to save his life. And the internet might scream murder, but the US Supreme Court, they'll call it reasonable. We are fortunate to live in a world where we have the benefit of watching video of this incident from the armchairs of our computers. Many of you might have watched the footage frame by frame and have said, I would have done it differently. I would have stepped back. I wouldn't have shot. But today we're going to learn a hard lesson about the difference between the YouTube comment section and how this will be analyzed in a courtroom.
And rightly so, because it turns out that, again, keyboard warriors aren't always the best at coming to an accurate assessment of the facts.
We are going to respond to Legal Eagle's latest missive that claims that this shooting was depraved, and we're going to dismantle it with cold hard mechanics of self-defense, the physics of the situation, and the legal standards that apply to this incident.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I could not finish Legal Eagle's video. It was fucking ridiculous. I actually saw Legal Eagle's video in a Evie Elfpire or Eva Elfpire series live stream. Now, if anyone doesn't know who Eva Elfpire is, she is a law tuber and a VTuber. So she actually has experience practicing law, and so her input is actually quite her input was actually quite interesting about this stuff. I didn't agree with her on everything, but you know, it's nice to hear from someone who actually, again, like Nate the lawyer and Uncivil Law, who actually have some knowledge of this field. But yeah, she played that on her stream, and we didn't even bother finishing the video. Legal Eagle actually managed to break the 3 strikes rule in his video, and we're like, this video is not worth watching.
Because in the courtroom, when it comes to high-stakes survival, the frame of the situation is the trap. Today, we're going to bridge the gap between what you've seen on the news and what the law protects. And spoiler alert, the law protects the agent in this situation. The incident involving the ICE agent took place in Minneapolis in January. It's freezing. The ground is covered in snow and ice. Renee Nicole Good is in her car. From her point of view, she is a mother surrounded by shouting men. But to the agents that are trying to interact with her, she's a suspect behind the wheel of a 4,000-pound weapon.
To be fair, you can see her face in the video. It's I don't imagine she was all that stressed in the situation. She had a pretty fucking smug look on her face.
The mainstream media coverage has attempted to provide a framing of the woman as one who's trying to escape a predator. Let's listen to part of the analysis from Legal Eagle that we're reviewing today on this point.
As we'll talk about in some depth, Analyzed from multiple angles, the video footage seems to show Miss Good's car attempts to back away from officers surrounding her car and trying to force entry, and then lurch forward in an ill-fated attempt to escape confrontation.
Now listen to the framing Legal Eagle used in that video. An ill-fated attempt to escape. It all sounds like a tragedy of errors, a simple misunderstanding. But escape is a legal term of art. And when you try to escape using a vehicle while federal agents are standing within touching distance, the law stops seeing a driver and starts seeing a deadly threat.
Again, obviously it has to be interpreted as a deadly threat. I've actually been hit by a car, funny enough. I've been hit by a car a couple times, actually. But I've been lucky. I have been lucky in like how I've been hit by a car. I've been hit a couple times, and I've never been too hurt. Like it definitely felt pretty bad for like a week afterwards. But my experience is not the norm. That's why I'm like, adrenaline does things to you. Because when I got hit by a car, it was actually on a college campus, funny enough, and I got hit by a professor. So I was on a moped, and I was crossing the intersection, and the professor actually hit me with his car. It was my fault, by the way. Like that one was actually my fault. I was young and stupid at the time, and I got thrown across the street. So I went from like in my lane to being thrown off my bike across the street. And adrenaline does fucking wild things to you, because before I understand fully what happened, I am already on like at his window, and I'm knocking on the window. Sir, are you okay? And he just takes one look at me, and he's like, "Am I okay? You're the one who got hit by a car." Like, oh yeah. I do enjoy telling that story, but that's, it still hurt like a bitch afterwards. I was still hurt, but adrenaline does crazy shit to you.
Legal Eagle goes on to claim,
and as Vice President Vance has so eloquently put it, but videos posted online and witness accounts appear to contradict the official narrative.
I mean, you'd have it just. It seems pretty consistent with the narrative right there. The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car.
The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car.
Do they contradict the official narrative, or do they just show us a perspective that the agent didn't have? To understand why the agent, Mr. Ross, is likely walking away from this, we have to look at the objective and subjective reality that the agent was faced with. To understand why this shooting is legally justified, you have to understand the standards that come to deadly force. Now, it's not about whether the officer was angry, and it's not about whether he was holding a phone. It boils down to one simple thing. The standard is this: did the person who took the shot have substantial reason to believe, both objectively and subjectively, the person they shot posed a threat of serious physical harm to the officers or others? And when it comes to that threat can either be ongoing or imminent. Imminent means that it's about to happen. It means a fuse is lit. In the classic example, it means that the knife is drawn back. Legal Eagle's analysis tries to minimize the threat because he says the car wasn't moving very fast yet. Now, in many situations, speed is certainly relevant, but it is largely irrelevant if the distance is zero. A car moving at a mere 5 miles an hour covers 7 feet in 1 second. And if you're standing 2 feet away, you have less than a third of a second to make a decision on how to save your life. And
yeah, and I think people forget the kinetic energy formula, if you want to break it down into physics. Yeah, technically speed is more important in the kinetic energy formula than mass per se. But mass is still a very important factor in the kinetic energy formula for a reason. A slow-moving vehicle can still cause you some real bodily fucking harm. Especially if, for example, when you're clipped or hit, you potentially get run over by the car, which, being hit by the car in the moment, you're not going to know where you're going from that car.
That simple temporal reality brings us to how the law backs the officer through 2 distinct frames. The objective standard when it comes to a law enforcement officer largely comes from the U.S. Supreme Court case of Graham v. Connor. It asks, would the reasonably prudent officer on the scene perceive a deadly threat? The core of the argument against the agent is that the car was turning away from him. Now, Legal Eagle is very specific about this so-called gotcha movement.
The SUV's tires here appear to be pointed away from Agent Ross at the time that the first shot is fired, which would undermine the self-defense claim under the state statutes.
Except for the fact, again, you literally couldn't see the tires from that angle.
But when it comes to the objective standard, we must view things from the point of view of the officer. We have to stand in his shoes. That's what the jury is going to be told to do. So I want you to be that agent for a moment. And you're standing in front of the car. I'm the driver. If I turn my wheels hard to the right to escape, what happens to that left front corner? What happens to the nose of the vehicle? It swings to you. When a vehicle steers sharply right to accelerate, the nose of the car creates a crush zone on the left.
Yep.
Legal Eagle argues,
a frame-by-frame analysis of bystander video footage raises serious questions about the administration's narrative that Agent Ross was forced to fire defensive shots to protect the life of himself and others.
But the physics of the situation dictates that the car turning right means that entire car is heading in your direction, a deadly threat. After all, 4,000 pounds of car is coming to you, more than enough to crush you. Under the objectively reasonable standard, the reasonable officer would be expected to know that the turning car turning towards him is a crushing weapon. The frame from Legal Eagle tries to tell you she's leaving, but the physics from the point of view of the officer tells you that she's attacking. Now let's take a look at the subjective framework. The subjective framework is what was happening inside that particular officer's head. The law will ask, did that agent feel fear? Was that fear honest? Now, Legal Eagle,
I think we can all, with the context of his prior experience, say, yeah, no shit, he felt fear about that.
actually gives us the evidence we need to prove this. Look at what he says about the officer's own history.
Lastly, it's come to light that Mr. Ross is a 10-year veteran of ICE and was involved in the prior months in a similar situation that did result in his injury.
Now, Legal Eagle tries to use this argument against him. So
I will say that Legal Eagle in the video that in Legal Eagle's video, he does say that this ICE officer has a habit of making bad decisions around vehicles. And obviously this incident is not his particular fault because he didn't put himself in front of the vehicle. She put him in front of the vehicle. But he very well might have bad luck with vehicles, if you believe in luck.
Suggesting the officer was traumatized and therefore somehow unreasonable. But legally, that operates as his shield.
Yeah, and that doesn't make any sense to me either. It's like, oh yeah, I have prior experience with being horribly maimed by, for example, tigers. So when the tiger broke out of the enclosure, I just shot it. It's like, that actually sounds supremely reasonable to me, to be perfectly honest. What the fuck are you on about, right? The idea that, like, this prior experience with having almost been killed through a vehicle, which wasn't even pointed at you, by the way. He was being dragged by it. Yeah, I don't think that makes you less reasonable or less justified. I actually think it makes you more justified in your concern.
Here's how it might sound from a defense lawyer if it ever came to court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client isn't paranoid. He's educated. He knows exactly what it feels like to be dragged by a car. His fear wasn't hypothetical. It was memory. He reacted faster because he knew from firsthand experience the cost of being slow. And this all validates the subjective frame. He had an honest, good faith belief that lurching equals death. Now we need to talk about the seductive lie that is slow motion. Legal Eagle's video focuses heavily on the fact that the officer kept shooting as the car passed by him.
He opens fire on Miss Good and continues shooting as she drives past him. At no point does Agent Ross appear to drop the cell phone carried in his left hand, and that's bolstered by the footage he took on that cell phone continuously during the shooting, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can pretty easily explain why he didn't drop the cell phone in his hand. One, that's his record of events. Like, if he's going to shoot, he needs to be able to justify why he shot, and that's a pretty good justification that he has on that phone. Second of all, he may have just, like, his hand may have just clenched, to be perfectly honest, and you're not dropping your phone in that particular situation.
Legal Eagle seems to be implying malice. It implies that he decided to execute her after he knew he was safe. But this argument relies on a frame-by-frame analysis, which the Supreme Court in Graham explicitly forbids. To understand why, you have to understand the biology of the situation. It's called the action-reaction gap. It takes about a quarter of a second to decide to shoot, and it takes another 3/10 of a second to pull the trigger. But once the brain says stop, it can take nearly 7/10 of a second for the finger to actually stop moving. Now, that isn't murder for the very reason that those follow-up rounds don't have intent. The first round might have, but not the follow-up rounds, because of the neurology of the brain, and that isn't murder.
Yeah. Honestly, anyone who is refusing to engage with this particular fact is not treating human beings in a concrete reality. They are treating human beings as if they live in some kind of abstract realm. Because again, the nature of the concrete is limitation. And obviously we don't have access to all information at any given time. So what real argument could you possibly have that that this doesn't matter? There is none. Like, if someone's not willing to interact with this particular fact, you know that they're being bad faith, and they're not treating people as if, again, we live in space and time, and its intrinsic limitations.
Legal Eagle makes a big deal about the optics of the situation. And from certain points of view, it can look bad.
And it's much harder to make the argument that you were acting reasonably and fearing for your life while recording video continuously in one hand and pulling out your gun in the other like Akimbo Deagles.
While I do appreciate the gamer reference for Akimbo Deagles, I truly do, there is, of course, a actual legal reality to the situation.
Anyone let me know what Kimbo Deagles is, because whatever game they're referring to, I have no fucking clue. I don't play shooters.
Legal Eagle has argued,
and I will opine at this time, that holding your cell phone in one hand while firing with the other seems pretty reckless, if not depraved indifference to the human life.
Now, first of all, reckless.
I would say reckless is driving into someone, if not depraved indifference to a human life. Like, again, they want to apply all of this to the officer, but they don't want to apply any of this to the person behind the car. And there's no reason you couldn't apply these to the person behind the car, to be perfectly honest. Like, there was no particular need for her to actually drive into the officer. If it was impossible, given that she turned, she also just could have idled. That was also a possibility. Or she could have gotten out of the car. That was another possibility. Like, there was no actual need to drive forward into another person, potentially costing them, injury or death.
This does not typically mean guilty of murder. The Supreme Court has rejected a so-called provocation rule in a case called County of Los Angeles versus Mendez. Basically, you can't say, "Officer, you were standing in a stupid spot and holding a phone, so somehow I'm allowed to run you over." No, that, of course, isn't the law. When Miss Good turned the wheel and accelerated, she created a new, independent, deadly threat using a car. At that moment, the phone in the officer's hand becomes irrelevant. The only thing that matters at that point is the vehicle versus the human body. Now, let's suppose, like Legal Eagle, you're one of those people that doesn't buy the self-defense argument. Let's say you think that Agent Ross was wrong, and you think that the family deserves justice. So perhaps you think they could sue him, right? Take his house, make him pay? Well, under federal law, not so much.
I mean, I do think the family deserves justice, but I think the justice in that family would be seeing the wife who told her to drive, baby, drive, be prosecuted for her criminal behavior in this particular incident.
Welcome to the case of Bivens. In 1971, the Supreme Court decided a case called Bivens versus 6 unknown named agents. It said, if federal agents kick down your door and violates your Fourth Amendment rights, you can sue him personally for money. Now, for a few decades, Bivens was alive. It was a pathway to accountability. But over the last 40 years, the Supreme Court has slowly and methodically strangled Bivens to death. In a recent case, for example, Egbert versus Belay, the Supreme Court basically said, unless the facts are exactly like that 1971 case, down to the color of the socks, you can't sue. Now, this is different from the normal quality.
Now, granted, that's obviously a hyperbole, but yeah, obviously that's hyperbole. But like, some of these cases, they do have like a lot of really stringent in strange requirements.
Qualified immunity that you hear about when it comes to officers. Qualified immunity, which applies to normal officers, says you can sue, but I might be immune. The death of Bivens says you can't even open the door to the courthouse. There will be no lawsuit that makes it past a motion to dismiss. Legal Eagle goes on to say,
but then, of course, there are the immunity issues. Now, despite what noted Yale law graduate, J.D. Vance says, federal officers do not have absolute immunity simply by virtue of being federal agents.
Now, this does have the benefit of being technically true when it comes to criminal charges, although the supremacy clause of the Constitution makes that nearly impossible.
That's that Futurama joke. You are technically correct. The best kind of correct. Oh my God.
But for civil lawsuits, for any family trying to get damages, Agent Ross is protected by a legal shield that's thicker than any Kevlar. Because the courts have decided that allowing you to sue an ICE agent for doing his job would disrupt the efficiency of the government. After all, if the law did allow the agent to be sued in this particular situation, every agent would be afraid to pull the trigger. They would hesitate. And if they hesitate, that puts the officer's life in real jeopardy. If you need further examples of how this is true, I would recommend sometime that you watch YouTube videos relating to roadside stops. The number of times that roadside stops can go from 0 to 100 would truly surprise you if you're not familiar with the material.
Okay. So funny enough about that, because he brings this up. This is not related to this particular thing, but one of my previous supervisors was a ex-police officer, and I don't know how the hell we got into this conversation. We were talking about like the ethics of policing, and we ended up talking about like traffic stops. And I pointed out, look, man, I don't particularly trust the police, but I've also never really had a bad run-in with the police because I treat police like human beings, right? Like, one of the things I tend to do is, because I actually care about the people around me, is if the lights go off behind me, I will pull into a parking lot. That way we're not on the side of the road, because I've seen too many examples of cops getting clipped by a car from a reckless driver when they pull over to the side of the road. And I've been asked that a couple times when I get pulled over. It's like, is there a reason you didn't stop? Stop. I was like, I did stop. I pulled into a parking lot. Like, why'd you pull? I was like, why'd you pull into a parking lot? Like, I've seen too many YouTube videos of cops getting like hit by cars because they're on the side of the road. I don't want to see someone get like, I don't want to see someone get splattered on the road today. So it turns out decorum actually is a friend of yours, just in general.
So let's get through the misinformation and get down to the legal reality. Agent Ross has a subjective belief of fear, not only from being in that situation, which you and I would also share a fear of a 4,000-pound car coming at us, but from his own prior history of being dragged by a car. And he has the objective fear backing of physics. And he has a procedural fortress in both supremacy clause immunity and the dead Bivens doctrine. As for Legal Eagle, he wants to try to do this under state law.
Now, Minnesota's applicable statute permits the use of deadly force when, quote, an objectively reasonable officer would believe, based on the totality of the circumstances known to the officer at the time and without the benefit of hindsight, that such force is necessary to protect a peace officer or another from death or great bodily harm, provided that the threat can be articulated with specificity, is reasonably likely to occur absent action by the law enforcement officer, and must be addressed through the use of deadly force without unreasonable delay.
I mean, I would imagine this situation fits all of these requirements.
Now, Legal Eagle really should know better in this situation. This is a federal officer doing a federal job function. Federal supremacy trumps state laws. Federal supremacy would laugh under any duty to retreat law. Under the U.S. Supreme Court case of In re Nagel, a federal officer has no duty to retreat while enforcing the federal law. So if Minnesota law says run and the federal government says stay, the federal officer performing a federal function, yeah, the federal officer wins on federal law. It seems Legal Eagle wants this to be a story about a bad man and a good woman. He wants the video to be the truth. He wants to take the advantage of video played in slow motion to be able to pick this thing to death. But the law acknowledges something.
I think he misspoke there when he said he wants the video to be the truth. Maybe he's talking about the video that Legal Eagle himself made. If that's the case, then yeah, sure, he's spot on. But yeah, no, he wants the particular narrative that he's already decided on as being true to turn out to be true. I don't know why the fuck that's the case, but Legal Eagle is kind of notorious for coming to all kinds of like really bizarre conclusions for no discernibly justifiable reason. But yeah,
thing that Legal Eagle ignores: the fog of war. The law knows that humans, even federal agents, cannot pause time. We might be able to see the tires turning, but the agent in the moment can't see tires turning away and instantly calculate the vector of the front bumper. The agent has to react in the moment. He reacts and he survives. And the law knows that you have to look at things as they existed to that officer in the moment, not with the benefit of hindsight. So we've built a system in cases like Graham, Nagel, the death of Bivens, that's designed to give the benefit of the doubt to the federal officer that's holding the gun. The frame that Legal Eagle tried to develop is the trap. It traps the officer in a moment of impossible perfection. And it traps you in a narrative of outrage before you even understand the rules of the game.
yeah, and again, that's why the law doesn't work like that.
In your own life, have you ever had to make a decision where the outcome was uncertain, but there had to be a decision made right that moment? Have you ever reacted out of instinct, only to have someone criticize you later? That is a hindsight standard, and that the law explicitly forbids. And while we should mourn the tragedy of Renee Nicole Good, we must understand that tragedy does not always equal crime. Because if you live your life believing the frame is the trap, you might just find the freedom to see the whole story, even the parts that are hard to look at. Be safe, be kind, and don't rely on slow motion replay. My name is Kurt, and this has been Uncivil Law. Until next time, make sure to keep it uncivil out there. Cheers and goodbye.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing everyone keeps forgetting to do. I'm definitely going to watch this as soon as I close out the stream. um, what the fuck just popped into my brain? Oh my god! But anyway, yeah, people forget that, like, yeah, sure, both cops and criminals are obviously human beings, which we do forget this all the fucking time. Like, I have to remind some of the people, because again, I'm not exactly a big state person. Like, I do think that there are many laws which are unjust, and I do think that, like, obviously that there are some bad practices which are common among law enforcement, but at the same time, it's like, cops are human beings. Like, they're not intrinsically evil. They're not ontologically evil like these people who are protesting ICE seem to want want ICE to be. They're human beings subject to the same vices and virtues that the rest of us are. There's no class of entity called police. They're still individuals themselves. And the same thing goes with, like, obviously criminals and suspects, because obviously not every suspect is a criminal, but you get what I'm saying. I think we've all seen the video of, like, the this fucking what do you call it, the jail footage of the where the fucking security guard is being held hostage, and then the other inmates jump to defend the police officer, there, because they actually like the guy. So yeah, obviously we have mental heuristics for on the spot judgments for a reason. It's a survival advantage. You can't take the time in a high stress situation or in a potentially risky situation to get to know someone in complete detail. But you know, we're all just human beings, man. We all make stupid mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are completely justifiable in the situation. Again, in this particular case, I think the officer was completely justified in this particular situation. That's just my 2 cents. Uh, like, I don't know what the fuck to tell anyone about this other than okay, yeah, this was